On February 22nd. We'll get the planning board meeting started here. Staff with us tonight is Julia Crane, newly appointed planning director, and Joella Thomas. We'll take roll call for the planning board here. Mike McLeod, Alice Deshay, Matt Steitzer present, Julie Jackshaw, Bart Riley, Josh O'Neill, Mark Garf,
Here.
Sean Orey,
Here.
Bill Daly. Here. All right, thank you. All right, for tonight's agenda item, we have an application for a four-lot subdivision by McGree Finance LLC, represented by Jim McGree and Chad Ball, professional surveyor, Sarah Jones, engineer. The proposed subdivision is located at the east end of Lindale Lane at the described location. And so at this time, we'll ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Chairman Steitzer. Board, thank you for being here this evening. My name is Julia Crane. I am the new planning director. I wrote you all a couple of weeks ago and got quite busy, so if you've not heard a response from me, that is why. However, I am interested in getting together with each of you and visiting more, so I will be in touch to schedule. Wonderful. All right, this evening we're going to be presenting the preliminary plat application for the McGree Finance minor subdivision. Applicants Jim McGree, McGree Finance LLC, with Chad Ball of Brown and Associates as its representative. The proposal is a preliminary plat for four-lot minor subdivision comprised of 4 residential lots. Tract A measures or is 25.85 acres, Tract B 28.57 acres, Tract C 29.19 acres, and Tract D 28.91 acres. There is one variance request included with this preliminary plat application, and it is a request to vary from the Butte-Silver subdivision regulations, section 12C, sidewalks. That request is to vary from a sidewalk or walkway by providing share the road language on or signage on the improved Lindale Lane. Here is an aerial photograph of the property. You can see here that Lindale Lane, coming out of the northwest, traverses to the end at a proposed cul-de-sac that will be improved upon as part of this development. There's one house currently on this parcel, and it is bounded on the right-hand side or the eastern edge by United States Forest Service, private ownership through the Homestake Meadows subdivision to the south, privately owned land to the west, and the Buffalo Estates subdivision to the north. And you can also see I-90 traversing along the northeastern corner of the property here. The zoning for this particular location is R1S, or rural single-family suburban. The proposed plat includes Tract A, B, C, and D. They're depicted here. You can see Lindale Lane traversing through to the proposed cul-de-sac here in the center of the site. And the plat also includes depictions of easements for utilities and some perennial water courses or intermittent water courses that flow through the property. Here's a view of the property to the south, to the north, to the east, both looking northeast and southeast, sorry, turned around there. And then the view to the west. We'll now review the subdivision based upon the criteria. First, we'll discuss effects on agricultural waterways or water users. The surrounding land use is predominantly low-density residential housing with some grazing land. The Buffalo Estates subdivision is located to the north and Forest Service land located to the east. Homestake Meadows subdivision phase 2 is located to the south, and residential development and some grazing land to the west. The proposed subdivision is not expected to hinder access to the grazing land or negatively affect nearby agricultural land, and the proposed subdivision is not near prime or prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance. Effects on local services. Each tract proposed will have an individual well and septic system, and no municipal services will be necessary. All 4 lots of the proposed subdivision will have legal and physical access from Lyndale Lane. The proposal is to improve Lyndale Lane and then transfer ownership to Butte-Silver Bow for ongoing operations and maintenance. Butte-Silver Bow Public Works and Roads do not have any concerns with utility or road capacity here. The area is served by the Home Atherton Volunteer Fire Department and the Butte-Silver Bow Fire Department and is within the existing school busing area of Hillcrest Elementary, East Middle School, and Butte High School. Effects on the natural environment. The subdivision does not contain any regulatory floodplain, nor are there any water features present on the property. There is one intermittent water course on the property, which is called out on the preliminary plat. Development will likely cause land disturbance, and effects should be minimal as long as proper erosion control techniques are implemented, and in areas of disturbance must be reclaimed and reseeded post-construction. In order to reduce noxious weeds on the property, the applicants must sign a weed management plan with the weed board, and a weed management plan has been provided to the weed board. Prior to final plat, a plan must be approved and bond must be posted. In addition, Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks has evaluated the proposal and commented that they see no concerns related to wildlife. Effects on public health and safety. Lyndale Lane will be improved to meet county road specifications for suburban rural roads at the applicant's expense. The applicant requests a variance for the installation of sidewalk along Lyndale Lane. All new approaches and driveways will orient from a cul-de-sac that meets the requirement of Section 11H of the subdivision regulations. The area is part of the Butte-Silver Bow Emergency Services District, but in addition to fire and police services being available to the lots, all individual homes will require in-home sprinkling, which will be incorporated to meet fire safety standards of the subdivision regulations. To review the variance proposal, the applicant requests a variance to the Butte-Silver Bow subdivision regulations, specifically Section 12C1B. The regulations state all subdivisions within the R1S and R4 zoning districts shall construct concrete boulevard sidewalks or paved boulevard pedestrian walkways on one side of the street. The applicants state that due to the topography of the property and the requirements to construct Lyndale Lane to road specifications, which is about a 60-foot width, requires significant earth moving to balance the cut and fill slopes to create the proper roadside ditches and slopes for adequate drainage, while minimizing impacts to vegetation and contributing to future erosion. The applicant proposes a share the road signage as an alternative. Staff evaluated the proposal and agrees with the applicant that the topography of the site creates a hardship and that installation of the sidewalk and trail would not be contrary to public interest as no additional connectivity would be gained. No sidewalks exist on Lyndale Lane currently, or are connections available to additional recreational spaces in the same area. And the proposed signage would not create public health or safety concerns, as it would serve as a reminder to vehicles using Lyndale Lane that pedestrians, cyclists, or other modes of transportation are present. Staff recommends its approval of the variance request. The Planning Board makes recommendation to the Council of Commissioners, and from our staff evaluation, the subdivision satisfies zoning and subdivision requirements. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat of the McGree Finance minor subdivision and the variance request to Section 12C, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. In recommending approval, conditional approval, or denial of the subdivision application and preliminary plat, the Planning Board shall base its recommendation on compliance of the subdivision application and preliminary plat on the above evaluated criteria: the application and plat and local zoning and comprehensive plan. The subdivision complies with the provisions of the R1S zoning classification and intents of the 2020 comprehensive plan and satisfies the criteria outlined in the subdivision regulations. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the McGree Finance minor subdivision subject to the following conditions: that the preliminary plat is good for 3 years. At the end of this period, the governing body may, at the request of the subdividing entity, extend this time frame. The final plat shall conform to all the requirements of the Butte-Silver Bow subdivision regulations and requirements of the Montana Subdivision and Platting Act. This includes certification by the treasurer that taxes are paid and current. All septic systems, well, and stormwater installations shall obtain the required permits and approvals prior to submitting the final plat application. Addresses will be assigned to the new lots by the planning department at the time of the individual lot owners apply for building permits. Prior to filing the final plat, the applicant shall approve or bond for the improvement of Lindale Lane to the specifications of the Butte-Silver Public Works Road Division. The installation cost plus 25% must be included in the subdivision improvement agreement and security guarantee to be submitted prior to the filing of the final plat. The applicants shall be required to secure all applicable permits that may be necessary to make improvements in or near designated wetlands or surface water bodies, including but not limited to stormwater discharge construction permit from Montana Department of Environmental Quality stormwater program, a floodplain development permit from Butte-Silver County, a 310 permit from the Mile High Conservation District, and a 404 permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Each future residence shall be required to install a residential fire sprinkler system at the time of construction and meet the requirements of A10 1.3 Appendix A fire standards of the Butte-Silver subdivision regulations to meet this subdivision's fire protections requirement. Easements shall be provided as requested by the utility companies and shown on the face of the final plat. In addition, the following statement shall be located on the face of the final plat. The undersigned hereby grants unto each and every person, firm, or corporation, whether public or private, providing or offering to provide telephone, telegraph, electric power, gas, television, water, or sewer service to the public, the right to joint use of an easement in construction, maintenance, repair, and removal of their lines and other facilities in, over, under, and across each area dedicated on this plat as a utility easement to have and hold forever. There will be no proposed special or rural improvement districts. This subdivision will have a homeowners association. And the association documents, including bylaws, articles of incorporation, and covenants and restrictions to be included in deeds or contracts for sale, must be submitted prior to final plat. The homeowners association shall be formed before any property is sold. The applicants shall include a variance title block on the face of the plat should the variance from 12C1B be approved. As required by the Butte-Silver subdivision regulations, section 12L, a weed control plan shall be approved by the weed board prior to filing final plat with the clerk and recorder. Also, as required, the applicants must submit bond equal to the amount of money necessary to complete the approved weed control plan. This bond be in the form of cash, surety bond, certified check, or some other guaranteed negotiable instrument. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Does the applicant or the applicant representative like to make any comment? Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Crane. I think the recommendation of variance makes sense to me. Is there any board discussion, board questions? Mr. Garf?
I have a quick question. This does seem pretty straightforward. I just was curious, how are the perennial watercourses determined on the plat?
You can see them identified here in these. These are utility easements, and there's a spring water line located here that is reference for the water rights that the property owner holds.
Okay, but I think the ones that are going across the site are perennial watercourses, so are they determined through survey?
I don't believe that. I think perennial is a mistake of my vocabulary and that they are intermittent.
Okay, intermittent. Okay.
Yes.
But they're determined through survey?
I'd have to defer that question to Chad Ball.
Mr. Ball?
Sorry. There are, I don't have the regs in front of me, but there are classifications to these waterways, class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, based on how often they run. Is it a ditch? Is it a perennial stream that runs year-round? We deemed these, I wish I had it in front of me, but class whatever, and that triggers what these vegetation setback buffers are and what these no-build zones basically are along these waterways. As you can see, it looks like these no-build zones are 50 feet offset from the center line of the waterway on those two. But it's determined by just historical evidence of whoever's lived there or have witnessed it over the years, basically. It's not determined by DNRC or anything like that.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you. Just a question to Julia. When you were reading through, you mentioned something like about a 310 permit. Would you explain that? I just heard that wrong.
Yeah, Josh, that is standard language that we included in this particular conditions set, but 310 permit pertains to doing work in a wetland area. And so the Mile High Conservation District has jurisdiction over wetland work, and the 310 permit permits that activity in that particular area.
Mr. Rory?
Is there, the variance certainly seems to make sense to me. A 29-acre tract is one of those. Is there a maximum or a minimum of how many homes we will allow in each one of these tracts?
At this particular time, there would be one house per tract, but if there were to be subsequent subdivision of these particular tracts, then more homes could be possible, but that would be considered a subsequent minor redevelopment or a subsequent minor subdivision or a major subdivision, depending upon the number of lots that would be created.
So if the owner decides that he wants to put in 30 homes, is that something that's going to come before this board? Is that something that's going to go before zoning? Does he have, I mean, explain to me please how that works, because I don't know.
If the applicant were to seek to place more homes than the proposed 4 tracts on the property, he would have to come for a subsequent minor subdivision if it were 5 or less lots. If it were 5 or greater, or 6 or greater lots, it would be considered a major subdivision, and they would also come before this body as a preliminary plat and then follow through the same procedure that this particular subdivision is following. Yep.
Mr. Chairman, Julia, I have a question on that. So if we grant the variance on the sidewalks and they do decide to subdivide a parcel of that land, does that variance stay with that subdivision, or would they have to come back and then, you know, receive a new variance or ask for a new variance, or does it stay with the granting tonight if we grant the variance?
Member Jackshaw, I am not clear on the rules, just given my lack of experience with subdivisions. However, I can look into the answer for that question and get back to the board with that.
Ms. DeShay?
So the road is 60 feet wide, but a 5-foot sidewalk, which I think is 5 feet is the minimum for a sidewalk, presents a hardship. And I'm just wondering why, because we're going to have buses going out there, kids walking. I'm just concerned that it's not going to be safe once that road is developed and people get used to going out there. I don't think 5 feet for a sidewalk is a lot of hardship.
Ms. DeShay, the concern from staff's evaluation of the proposal is that given the required cut and fill as presented by the applicant would create significant disturbance of the land in the area. And while sidewalks or walkways that would be on the yet to be improved portion of Lyndale Lane would be present, there is no connectivity to sidewalks beyond this particular area. The improved portion of Lyndale Lane beginning at Continental Drive is not improved with sidewalks, so there are no existing sidewalks in the area.
Is that because it's an older development and we had this rule take effect after these places were built?
I am not sure of the development history of the neighborhood at Lyndale Lane. I can look into that for you. However, they may have received a variance, or it may not have been a requirement of their development at that point in time.
Okay.
Mr. Ball?
One thing, the roadway is not 60 feet wide, the right-of-way is 60 feet wide. The roadway is something smaller, I don't have the engineering plans in front of me, but it's not gonna be a 60-foot wide actual paved road. That's just the right-of-way that's available. So it'll be adding 5 feet onto, yeah, I'm not quite sure exactly. Yeah, maybe maybe 14 feet per drive lane, maybe. I don't have that in front of me. I just want to clarify it's not a 60-foot wide road.
Thank you. Mr. McLeod.
Are we good? We've had two subdivisions last year, or two minors. The one was off of Mount Highland Drive. We gave the variance. That's basically in town, but there was no connectivity. This is my second stint on the board, and I don't ever recall outside of the city limits where we didn't give a variance for sidewalks, because to Julia's point, there just isn't any connectivity, so it didn't make a lot of sense. And there was another one that was on Continental for Aware that we gave a variance to, similar deal. Whether it's right or wrong, I mean, that's just kind of the history of what we've done, for what it's worth.
Yeah, thanks for that. If there's no, Mr. Crane.
Mr. Chairman, in the regulations, it is a minimum 60-foot right-of-way to address Mr. Ball's comment, with a lane width of 12 feet or a total of 24 feet width for car right-of-way. And then the shoulder width being 10 feet.
Great, thank you. All right, so if there's no more discussion, I think our options are, there's a recommended motion here in the staff report, or if the board feels we need to wait for those responses from the planning department, that motion can be proposed as well. Mr. Daly, you're moving to, as recommended by staff, recommending approval to the Council of Commissioners. Thank you. Is there any discussion on that? All right, no discussion. Second from Mr. O'Neill. All those in favor of the motion signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion carries. Thanks, guys. All right, we'll move on in our agenda here. There's one item of other business, update from the planning department for a zoning code update.
Mr. Chairman, as many of you may know, some of you may not, I joined the planning staff 4 months ago, and it was certainly a transition for me. In the meantime, as most of you know, Ms. Osborne has left the department, and so we have had quite a short staff. And so we do have a little bit of a delay in the zoning ordinance update that we have been working on as staff. I don't anticipate that we're going to stretch out too far where we would not hit a deadline or get this project done this year, but the deliverables that Ms. Osborne updated you on that would be coming in the first quarter of this year may slip a bit into the second quarter as a result of bandwidth in the department. However, we continue to work with our contractors at Orion. We have picked up other staff in the department who have a considerable amount of experience in zoning to continue to proceed with the definitions and the use tables that were presented to you at the last meeting. And in doing so, look to be bringing something before this body for your consideration in the second quarter of this year.
Great. Any questions? All right, I think at this point there's nothing left on our agenda. We'll move to adjourn. All right, all those in favor? All right. We are adjourned.